Hello everyone, welcome to the third video in this series. In this video I'm going to go through questions 5 and 6, the last two questions in the combined science AQA Biology Higher Paper 1, June 2022. Let's move on to the question. Question 5 is on diseases. This question is about tumors. Describe the similarities and differences between benign tumors and malignant tumors. So similarities and differences between benign tumors and malignant tumors. So first of all, what are tumors? Right? These are usually cells which are growing uncontrollably, which result as a result of mutation or damage to the DNA during cell division. Causes include exposure to carcinogens, radiation, X-rays, UV light, gamma, and chemicals such as cigarettes as well. Now here they are going to asking you to describe the similarities and the differences for 4 marks. So ideally they are expecting 4 points, 2 similarities and 2 differences. I'm going to give you all the similarities and all the differences available. Let me write the answer and walk you through the answer. So here's my answer. I've separated the answer into 2 sections. It's much better to write it in 2 sections. They're asking for the similarities and the differences. So initially, under the label of similarities, I've put down 3. Both are as a result of mutations or changes to the cell's DNA. Both involve uncontrolled cell growth or division. Both are made up of abnormal cells which can form a lump. Now the differences: malignant tumors are made of cancer cells, whereas benign tumors are not. They are more similar to normal cells. Now when we say they are similar to cancer cells, when we say the cells are cancerous, meaning that they can actually spread and cause harm to other neighboring cells. That's what cancerous cells means. So point 2, I'm referring to malignant cells, grow faster than benign tumors. Benign tumors, they tend to grow up to a certain point, and they might just stay dormant for a very long time, whereas benign tumors, they just keep on growing. Malignant tumors can invade neighboring cells, while benign cells do not. They can also spread to other parts of the body, mainly through the blood, whereas benign tumors do not. They can form secondary tumors, meaning that once even if a couple of cells break off from the lump and move through the blood and settle somewhere else in the body, they can actually start growing there as a cancer or cancerous or lump again. So whereas benign cells do not. So let's move on to question 5.2. So before question 5.2, they have given us figure 10, shows data about skin cancer in males and females for different age groups in the UK. It shows the number of new cases of skin cancer in 1 year. And the number of people with skin cancer per 100,000 population during this 1 year. So per 100,000 they're showing for males and in females. So let's look at the bar graph. So in the bar graph, on one side here you've got number of new cases of skin cancer. So it starts off at 0 and goes up right the way up to 1,200. On this side is the number of people with skin cancer per 100,000 population. This is important. So if you say it's 20, that's 20 people per 100,000. Now they have given you the different ages, and it's starting at 15 to 19, right? And it's 4-year range. So right all the way up to 80 to 84 years. So the bar graph is for the new cases, which is referring to this side. So, and the dotted line and the solid line is referring to the number of males and females with skin cancer per 100,000, which means that you need, when you're looking at the lines, you need to actually look at this axis. So let's have a look at what they're asking for question 5.2. Question 5.2, there are no new cases of skin cancer diagnosed in people younger than 15 years of age. Explain why, for 2 marks. So as you can see in here, there is no new cases are actually recorded for people younger than 15 years old. So why is this? So for 2 marks, any sensible answer uh, will give you a mark, but it has to be sensible and relevant, scientifically correct. So let me write the answer and I'll walk you through. So why is there less or no new cases of cancer in people younger than 15 years of age? Children of both genders, both boys and girls, younger than 15 years of age have had little exposure to ionizing radiation or carcinogens. So there is less damage to their DNA to result in skin cancer. Remember, when we are talking about ionizing radiation, we are mainly talking about UV light, which can come from sunlight, prolonged exposure to sunlight, or the use of sunbeds. Kids of age younger than 15 years old are not allowed to use sunbeds. There's an age limit. Or X-rays or gamma rays. So they haven't had that much of exposure for them to actually to result in skin cancer, even if they're exposed. So it takes a little bit of time for the skin cancer to develop. Question 5.3. Give 2 conclusions about the number of new cases of skin cancer. Use figure 10. So let's have a look at figure 10. So as you can see, we are talking about the number of new cases of skin cancer, and they're asking for 2 conclusions based on this. So we are looking at the bar graph. So generally the white box here is the female. So the white box is higher all the way up to about 54 years old, and then between 55 and 59 they're actually the same height, and then males seem to take over. They're taller all over. After 60 years or 59 years old, males actually take over. So those would be your conclusion. So below the age of 55, it's generally the women who actually have more cases of skin cancer, mainly usually as a result of being exposed to the use of UV beds, whereas males tend to use less of that, or exposure to chemicals. These can include perfumes, makeups, and all kinds of chemicals that they can be exposed to. And over the age of 60, it seems to be that the men have actually a higher chance of actually getting skin cancer. That's mainly resulting from being again exposed to sunlight, but probably as a result of working outside, or just spending more time generally outside in the sun. Whereas women actually tend to take care of themselves much more better care of their skin than men. So that could probably have an effect. They're not asking for an explanation, they're just asking for 2 conclusions. So let me write the conclusion and then walk you through that. So I have written 4 points for this. There are more females than males who are diagnosed with skin cancer up to the age of 59 years. There are more males being diagnosed after 60 years. After 59 to 69 year age, that age group of 59 to 69 has the largest number of diagnoses. This is true for both males and females. After 69 years old, 69 years, the number of new cases seems to decrease in both the genders. Question 5.4. The data for the number of people with skin cancer is given per 100,000 population. Suggest why the data is not given as the total number of people. Now this is a very common question I've seen in AQA biology. I've seen this quite a number of times. Why do they compare these cases per 100,000 population rather than actually the actual number? This is mainly to actually have a fair comparison, because if you take any population, the number of people of these different age groups can actually be much different. For example, the elderly people in UK at the moment, the population is much higher than those who are actually much younger. For example, those who are going to school at the moment. So since this allows a fair comparison between population of different age groups. Next question. Question 5.5. Describe two trends shown in figure 10. Use only data from the number of people with skin cancer per 100,000 population. So they have given the bar graph again, but this time you need to look at the line graphs, not the bar graph. So you're looking at the dotted line and the solid line to look at the number of people with skin cancer per 100,000 population. A common mistake would be students actually looking at the wrong scales. So make sure that you read the question carefully, and if you see a bar graph or any form of data with numbers on both sides, then make sure that you look at the key carefully. So what are they asking? Use only the data from the number of people with skin cancer per 100,000. Describe two trends. So it's very similar. So what's actually happening? Both overall, the solid line is slightly above than the dotted line, meaning that the number of females with skin cancer per 100,000 is generally slightly above the males right up to this age of between about 55. Right? After 55, the number of new cases of skin cancer in males shoots up rapidly, right up to about just below 120. So it's just over here, which is much bigger than the value for the females, which is slightly above 60. So that's a large gap, whereas the females actually tend to have a very similar pattern, or it's more or less a straight line, whereas in males it just shoots up. So let me write the answer and go through it. So number of people with skin cancer per 100,000 increases with age in both genders. As you can see, in both males and females, the line is actually going up. Now they're actually asking to describe two trends. So you need to describe the pattern or something that's actually changing over time. Point 2, number of cases in females increases steadily or at a steady rate. Point 3, up to about 55 years, number of cases in males is slightly lower than females but has a similar rate to the females. After 59 years, the number of cases in males show a rapid increase or higher rate than females. Now in this question, you only need two or any two of these points to get those 2 marks. So I haven't described the difference between the number of cases at the age of 80 and 84 because that difference would not be actually a trend. So hence I'm only talking about the trends here. Moving on to question 5.6. Question 5.6. The estimated population of males aged 80 to 84 years was 694,000. Calculate the number of males aged 80 to 84 years with skin cancer in that year. So use figure 10. Give your answers to 3 significant figures. So that carries actually 1 mark. So working out the number would actually give you those 2 marks. So let's have a look at the data again. So as you can see in this graph, we are looking at just this age group to answer this question. So calculate the number of males. So we are looking at the number of males with skin cancer, so which is the dotted line. Now the dotted line is just 1 box below this 120. Now as you can see, there's 5 boxes here for 20. So each box, it has a value of 4. So this would be 116 cases, right? So how are we going to use that value? Now the estimated population of males aged 80 to 84 years was 694,000. So according to the graph, they're saying there's 116 new cases per 100,000. So 116 divided by 100,000, and then I can multiply that by 694,000. So let's do the calculation. 116 divided by 100,000, right? And then multiply that by 694,000, which gives you an answer of 805.04, and in three significant figures that would be 805. So that's 805.04. So the answer is 805. So let me show you the marking scheme, and let's have a look at the marking scheme and quickly move on to question number 6. So in the marking scheme, as you can see, they have clearly separated out the similarities and the differences, and they have given 4 different points, and I've covered all of these points. You're only expected to write any 4 from. Maximum 3 marks if only similarities or differences given. So if you just simply write down just the similarities without any differences, you'll only get a maximum of just 3 marks. So you have to write both of them, and you can see we have covered all the differences as well. Benign tumors often have layer of covering cells. So question 5.2. Why do young children don't actually have skin cancer? There is little exposure to ionizing radiation, or they often use actually sunscreen. So young children are forced to, in most cases, to use sunscreen when they're out in the sun, or they don't actually take up smoking. Usually after the number of cases of people who been exposed to smoking is increases after 16. So 15 or 16. And the patterns, I'm not going to read through all of this. Feel free to pause the video and check through and go through the marking scheme. 5.5, again they're talking about the pattern, and 5.6 it was 805. Let's move on to question number 6. Question number 6 is about the heart. Why is the heart described as an organ? So organs by definition are made up of different types of tissues which all work together to perform a particular function. So that's the main reason why. So since it is made up of different types of tissues, all performing a specific or particular function. Question 6.2. Valves in the heart keep the blood flowing through the heart in one direction. Figure 11 shows the heart with one of the valves labeled. They haven't given the name. So as you can see, there's valve here, there's another valve here, and there's another valve here, and there's one here. So altogether there's actually 4 valves. So here they're saying they only label that as just one valve. Now this gives us a good opportunity to label the structure of the heart and go into a little bit detail, because it's asking explain the effects on the person if the valves labeled in figure 11, if this valve developed a leak. So before I answer the question, let me label the structure of the heart. This should give you some valuable notes. So here's a fully labeled heart. Let me walk you through. So starting from the bottom, This is the left ventricle. How do I know it? This wall is actually thicker. So the left ventricle needs to pump blood with a higher blood pressure because it needs to pump blood to all parts of the body, right? Whereas the right ventricle is pumping blood to just to the lungs, so it doesn't need to pump blood at a higher pressure, so it has the thinner walls. So both the bottom parts is the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Right above it is the left atrium and the right atrium on this side. Now blood comes through the pulmonary vein, which brings oxygenated blood from the lungs, and once it moves from the atrium, it moves into the ventricles and then out through the aorta, which carries oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. On the right hand side, the vena cava, which brings deoxygenated blood, I've marked it with blue arrows, from the body, and once the atrium is filled up, it moves on to the ventricles, and from the ventricles it moves out to just to the lungs. Remember, when the heart is beating, it's actually heartbeat is made up of two parts. The ventricles squeeze first, the atriums squeeze blood into the ventricle. Once that empties out, the ventricles fill up, and then the ventricles will squeeze out the blood to empty out the entire heart. So the blood actually fills up from the top and then moves to the bottom and then out of it again. So explain the effect of a person if the valve labeled in figure 11 developed a leak. So if this didn't actually close, once the blood is actually pushed out at a higher pressure, because you're trying to push it up against gravity, the blood will actually try to move back down. If that happens, then you're not pumping all the blood, or the heart is not pumping as much blood as it should. Now, because the question is asking you to explain, you need to give reasons about the effects on the person. The common mistake for this question would be students just writing down what is actually happening rather than actually saying how that would actually affect the person. So let me write the answer and walk you through the answer. So some blood would flow back into the left ventricle, so not all the oxygenated blood is pumped out of the body. This means less oxygen is delivered to cells, so less energy is produced by cells by aerobic respiration. This would mean that the person would feel tired, lacking energy. That should give you those 4 marks. Moving on to the next part of the question. The last question in this exam paper, question 6.3. Faulty heart valves can be replaced using biological or mechanical valves. Biological is those coming from animal source, including humans. Mechanical valves are basically artificial ones. Right? So when I say animal source, it includes humans, meaning the heart donated by human donors, or from animals, meaning pig's heart, which can also be used. So the faulty valve is replaced during an operation. Biological valves are from animals or human donors. Allow blood to flow through them normally, wear out and stiffens over time, so may need to be replaced. Now, I'm not talking about the entire heart. We're talking about just the valve. The valve is just a really thin piece of tissue that can be sewn into the heart. So, mechanical valves are made from synthetic materials, may cause blood clots on the surface of the valve, require anti-clotting drugs to be taken for the rest of the patient's life. Anti-clotting clotting drugs can include aspirin, right, which is the common drug that is used, can last for a very long time in ideal conditions. A young woman enjoys extreme sports and would like to start a family. The woman needs a heart valve replacing. Describe the advantages and disadvantages for this young woman of having a biological heart valve instead of a mechanical heart valve. So, why is it better to have a biological heart valve instead of the mechanical heart valve? So as you can see from the points given, are from animals or human donors, right? So if it's coming from animals or human donors, right? Now, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? It's mainly a disadvantage, meaning that you will probably have to wait for a human donor, but whereas a mechanical valve, you can actually just buy it off the shelf. Allow blood to flow through them normally. That is actually clearly an advantage. So this could be a disadvantage. This could be an advantage. Wear out and stiffen over time, so maybe need to be replaced. So that is a disadvantage there. Mechanical valves are made from synthetic materials, may cause blood clots on the surface of the valve, so that could be a disadvantage. Require anti-clotting drugs to be taken for the rest of the patient's life, so that's now if she's actually a pregnant woman or trying to have a baby, that means during pregnancy she will have to take anti-clotting blood, which means that if there's any problems during pregnancy or during cesarean, meaning that an operation to actually take out the baby, then it's going to be hard for the blood to actually to clot or to heal. Can last for a very long time, that could be an advantage. So let me write the answer and then walk you through it. So here are the advantages. Having a biological heart valve means there's a reduced risk of blood clots even during pregnancy. They do not need to take anti-clotting drugs, so there's no risk to the fetus from the drug during the pregnancy, and they don't actually have to carry the drugs all the time, and there's less chance of rejection. This is a disadvantage, right? It may be rejected, right? Although there is less chance, it can be actually be rejected as well. So may have to have more than one surgery. So on the information it says wear out and stiffens over time, so may need to be replaced. Now that's open heart surgery. You'll have to open up the heart and actually to do it, or actually it is an invasive surgery, so it is not the easiest. May need to take immunosuppressant drugs. Although the person might not need to take anti-clotting drugs, that person will have to take immunosuppressant drugs. Otherwise, the white blood cells will start attacking it and actually will get rid of the valve, because it is coming from the valve would ideally be made up of cells that is made up of DNA from another human or an animal source. And disadvantage could also be that you don't have to be worried about having to I got stuck there. Okay, let me look at the marking scheme and go through what's actually the marking scheme is saying. So in the marking scheme 6.1, it is made up of different types of tissues. That's why the heart is an organ. And what happens if there's a backflow? So some blood would flow back into the ventricle, so there's less oxygenated blood to be pumped to the body. That means there's less aerobic respiration, meaning that the person would actually be tired. So any of these 3 points is actually good enough to get you the marks. You need to definitely say that some of the blood will actually flow back into the ventricle to get that 4th mark. Question 6.3. Advantages and disadvantages. So as you can clearly say, advantage of biological valves: reduce risk of blood clots, meaning that which can cause a heart attack or a stroke. Reduce risk of blood clots during pregnancy. Less risk of bleeding during pregnancy. Do not have to take the anti-clotting drugs. No risk to the fetus. Reduce risk to serious bleeds if there's an accident. Do not have to carry the drugs when traveling. Lower risk of rejection or immune reaction. Disadvantage: it may be rejected, may have to go through more than one surgery, may have to take immunosuppressant drugs to control the white blood cells, may have to wait for a suitable donor. So that brings us to the end of this question paper. Hopefully you found this useful. If you did find it useful, please comment on the video. Let me know what I can do to actually improve the video. I'm fairly new, so I'm constantly trying to see if I can actually present this information to you in a much faster way as well. I know that my videos at the moment is slightly longer than I really want it to be, but it does take time for the notes to actually write down and highlight the key points. If you like this video, first of all, hit the like button. If you think it's useful, subscribe to my channel so that when I put up the next paper, you get a notification. And anything else, if you need help, let me know in the comment section, and I will definitely try and help you wherever I can. If you want the notes that I've actually made, just because you're lazy, let me know and I'll see if I can scan it and send it to you as well. Thank you for watching my videos. Hopefully I'll see you soon in the next paper for the June 2021 series for the combined science. Thank you very much.